Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it. I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network,
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
Welcome to Truth Talk Live. This is Peter Rosenberger. Glad to have you with us. Happy Wednesday. How are you feeling? Everybody okay? We've got some major things happening in our country and around the world, particularly what's going on in Florida as we're watching Milton. And if you were listening to this program anywhere in that path, be sure to follow the instructions given. Most people are evacuating. And let's be sure to keep all of those affected by this and what's going on in North Carolina and South Carolina and Tennessee, all of this before the Lord in prayer with these folks. And I would encourage you to find the right organization that you can give to that would help get the aid to them as best as possible. I can heartily recommend Samaritan's Purse. And if you are so inclined, and I would encourage you to do so, to give. It doesn't matter what the amount is to help these folks. It is a brutal journey that they're on, and we these are our people. These are our citizens. These are our fellow Americans, and they're hurting, and it's a tough thing. So let's be sure to do that. I want to delve into quite a bit today. I've got a very special guest at the bottom of the hour that you're not going to want to miss. We just had the October 7th anniversary, and this is a man that I've interviewed for my podcast and my other radio program I do. And I wanted to have him on here with you all today. He survived the Holocaust. He's 92 years old. And you're going to be quite moved by his story. But I want to start off with this. The Cultural Research Center, at Arizona Christian University had a new study out that shows approximately 104 million people under what they call the People of Faith umbrella are not expected to vote this election, including, are you ready for this? 41 million Christians, and 32 million of whom regularly go to church. Now, we've talked about this on this program. In fact, I had one caller got pretty upset with me about it because I'm pretty insistent on this, that we have a responsibility as believers, as salt and light. And I'm not going to just well, God's got it under control, so, God's got it under control. Do you still put on a seatbelt? You know, God's sovereign, whether you put a seatbelt on or not. But why do you put on a seatbelt? And, it's the same kind of reasoning. And most of you know my story by now. I mean, I've been taking care of my wife for 4 decades with a horrific set of challenges. And both legs amputated, 86 surgeries that I can count, 100-plus doctors, 13 different hospitals, and just an insane journey for the two of us that we've endured. And I've had people over the years that would come and say the most ridiculous things, and they're doing it dressed up as Christians. You know, they're saying these things and pronouncing, just stupid stuff. And I'm tired of it. We as Christians are better than this. We've got to be more studious with the scriptures and understanding. And we have a responsibility for duty and to work and to participate and to let our light so shine. And people have said, it's the lesser of two evils for this election. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, what can I do to lessen the evil? And until Jesus comes back, and we've already heard this, and the scripture says the government shall be on his shoulder. We know this. And we work towards that. I know that my wife will be healed, that she will mount up with wings like eagles and walk and not grow weary and run and not grow faint. I know this. And until then, we trust him, and we go about the business that he has for us, even with broken bodies, even with broken countries, even with broken election systems or broken candidates. But we persevere and endure, and we put our shoulders to the wheel to help. And Lynn Munsell is the president of Arizona Christian University. Used to be a nominee for governor there. He said, I see two huge takeaways from this blockbuster report. First, that Christians should be the deciding factor in a bunch of federal and state races and are choosing not to be. And second, that they are longing for their local church to instruct them how to think biblically about policy and politics. Why are we not involved? Are we content to let this just all fall down around us? How many get your oil changed on your car? You're doing what is stewardship of the things that you need to live in this world. You show up to go to a job. You pay your bills. You paint your house. If you got a leaky faucet, you fix it. All of those things. Voting is no different. It's stewardship of where we are. We're not voting for a perfect candidate because we don't have one. It's like saying I'm not going to go to church until I find a perfect church. Well, don't go because you'll ruin it. That's not the way this works. If 32 million people are sitting out on this election, who's going to run this country? I mean, think about it. Those are staggering numbers. Do we have a responsibility? You bet we do. Absolutely we do. Each vote does make a difference. And we do have a responsibility to show up there. Scripture talks about these things. And we, listen to this, Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous increase, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, people groan. Does that not spur you to action, to get involved? Everybody has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We know this. But there are some people who bring a malevolence to the way they run a municipality, a city, a state, a federal government. We've seen this. We've seen this around the world. We've seen this in our country. We've seen tyrants with clipboards in our local places. You've seen what they do in school board meetings with people who are trying to protect children. If 32 million Christians sit out, who's going to be running all this stuff? We can't do it, folks. We can't. We're going to talk more about this when we come back. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Truth Talk Live. 866-34-TRUTH. 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
Truth Talk Live.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. This is Peter Rosenberger. Glad to have you with us here. 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. This segment brought to you by a wonderful sponsor called Peel-Aways. Now, I do a radio program for caregivers. I write books for caregivers. I are one. 4 decades I've been doing this. What have I learned through it? Well, I've learned a couple of things. One of them is I don't like to do laundry. I just don't. And I've learned that I have to do sometimes laundry in the middle of the night. Things just happen. And I've talked to thousands of caregivers, same kind of thing. What do you do? What do you do? Well, this young man invented this product. He was on that show Shark Tank. And it was these fitted sheets that you get, and they have built-in chucks for them, like they'd use in the hospital. And you just peel them away. If something happens, wound care, incontinence, whatever, it doesn't matter. Spilling food. Just spill your drink. I remember that one time. Oh gosh, I was in the hospital one time with Gracie. I was round the clock, and it was just, I was so tired, and she wanted something to drink in the middle of the night, and got her some grape juice or something. She wanted some grape juice. I got her some grape juice there, and from the nurses. That's when I had full reign of this. Things have changed a little bit in hospitals. And she would hold it, and then she was kind of starting to doze off. And I said, I got it. And she said, no, I got it. And then she spilled it. And I was like, oh, we have to change the whole thing because you got grape juice everywhere. Not with Peel-Aways. They're perforated on each side. You just peel it away. There's a fresh new chuck liner right there. And you go about your business. Everything's good. There's like 5. You can get some with 7 on it. And they are amazing. Any size sheet you want. okay, from cribs to king size, to California king, I think. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm pretty sure that I know they got kings because I've tried it myself. And I want you to go out there to peterrosenberger.com, peterrosenberger.com, ROSENBERGER.com. You'll see a little tab that says resources. Peter recommends right there. You mention my name when you go there and order these things. You get a subscription. Put in the coupon code Peter. You get another discount. And it is amazing what you can do with these things. The time it's going to save, the headache. Caregiving's hard enough. Let's find some better tools, okay? All right, peel aways. peterrosenberger.com. We're talking about voting today and our responsibility. How many days we got out before the election here? We got a month. Right at a month, I guess. And less than a month. It's going to be November 8th, isn't it? Yeah, so less than a month. What's this going to look like? What's this country going to look like? I was watching an amazing interview with Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk, and, you know, you don't have to agree with people to learn from them, okay? I'm not asking you to. Acceptance doesn't mean agreement. You don't have to agree with everything. The only person I'm going to agree with is Christ, and I don't agree with him enough, and that's why he had to die for my sins. So, you know, I don't trust my own opinion. My mind is a dangerous place to go into unaccompanied. But Scripture tells me these things, and that's where truth is anchored. But along the way, I can learn from a lot of different people. And there's a great interview that Tucker was doing with Elon. And Elon is, you know, very smart guy, builds rockets and Starlink. And in fact, I'm talking to you now because of Starlink. I'm in Montana. I'm in the Rocky Mountains. I'm 10 miles from a paved road, and I'm using Starlink. Starlink is what's helping these people in North Carolina. This is Elon Musk. And all the things he's doing. He said, look, if this election, if Trump doesn't win this election, we're not going to have another one. It's going to be a one-state party just like California is. And they just passed a law in California saying that you can't ask for voter ID. Well, why would anybody ban voter ID? We have to have ID to do everything. I mean, you truly have to have ID to do just about anything in this country, and yet except to vote. And why? Other than to cover up, perpetuate voter fraud. Does that bother you? It sure bothers me. And I'm all about election integrity. And I am not trusting the systems we have in place. We've seen it before. And so if 32 million Christians, people who call themselves Christian, 32 million of them are sitting this thing out. Well, what do you think about that? How do you think that's going to play out? What's our responsibility here? Isaiah 126 says, "Then I will restore your judges as at the first, and your counselors as at the beginning. And after that, you will be called the city of righteousness, a faithful city." God will, you know, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then I will hear from heaven. I mean, if we're going to proclaim the name of Christ as Christians, do we not have a responsibility to stand up and make our voices heard? Otherwise, we can expect more of what we've had for the last several years. We can expect more crackdowns on what can be taught to our children, what we're allowed to say, what we're allowed to preach from pulpits. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to start seeing that kind of thing? It's already happening in Europe. You know, are you going to be able to preach the whole counsel of God in a totalitarian regime? Is this something that we could envision here in the United States of America? Folks, that's the end game for these folks. That's what they want. If you don't think so, listen to them in their own words. You know, Hillary Clinton was all over the news this week talking about that very thing. John Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam, he was out there talking about the First Amendment needs to go. You got Tim Walz is out there saying we need to abolish the Electoral College and have just the popular vote, and then they're going to stack the Supreme Court. In other words, they want to be California. How's that look? How's California looking? What are our responsibilities? And if we call ourselves Christians and we sit it out, Well, we got nobody to blame but ourselves. And guess what happens when people don't do those kinds of things? I've got a guest coming on at the bottom of the hour who lived through that kind of stuff. And is an extraordinary man. And if we are not willing to stand up and say no, and make our voices heard, you say, well, Peter, I'm just one vote. You're one vote, okay? You're one vote. But all of us together, and this is what the Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian was saying. Wow, 32 million that regularly go to church, 41 million who identify as Christians are sitting it out. Do you think that would change the course of this country? Do you like what you're seeing in your cities? Do you like what you're seeing paraded out on your media and all these kinds of things that you're watching on the news, and you're saying, how can this be happening? It may not be happening in your neighborhood, but how long till it does? What are your kids being taught in school? You know, I mean, have we lost the public school system in this country? If so, why? And I'll tell you why. If that many Christians are sitting out, their voice is not being heard, and we're allowing marginal people to get in with nefarious agendas. And it's not but a couple of steps away before they start imposing those things on you and me. We have a responsibility. Let's go vote. This is Peter Rosenberger, peterrosenberger.com, 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. We'll be right back.
Truth Talk Live.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome to Truth Talk Live. We are back. Peter Rosenberger here, 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH if you want to be on the program. And this section is brought to you, by the way, by Standing with Hope. Standing with Hope is the ministry that my wife envisioned after giving up both of her legs, and she wanted to put limbs, prosthetic limbs, on her fellow amputees. And for more than 20 years, we've been doing that now. Well, right at about 20 years, 20 years. We've been doing this in West Africa and other places, primarily in West Africa and Ghana. And we teach and equip local workers how to build limbs for their own people so that they are standing with hope. This is something she wanted to do, and it's extraordinary. And we have inmates at a prison that help us. We collect used limbs from all over the country, and they go to this prison run by Core Civic, a great group out of Nashville, Tennessee. And inmates volunteer to disassemble them so we can recycle some of those parts. We buy new materials and purchase them here and ship them, or we can buy some of them there in country in Africa. And it's extraordinary work. And she wanted to do this to be able to tell people about Jesus and get them walking and leaping and praising God. And they do. StandingWithHope.com if you want to find out more, and I hope you will take a look and see what we're doing. I had a great conversation recently with a wonderful man, and it's on the long form of my podcast and out at my Substack page as well, the video. His name is Jack Werfel, Jochen Werfel. Nickname is Jack, and he is 92 years old. This week we we commemorated the 1-year anniversary of what happened on October 7th. Just this horrific event. And we're watching right now as Israel prepares to deal with Iran now after this ridiculous assault that Iran has done on Israel that went nowhere, and Israel is about to retaliate and take care of business. This man knows the horror of the Holocaust. He survived it. He's been through this. And he has some amazing thoughts. He's written a book called My Two Lives. And he was born in 1932 in Germany to Jewish mother and Catholic father, and lived in Austria until 1936. His father was a political prisoner. I'm going to give you the background on it because he'll be calling in here in a second. We had him on here and we lost him for just a second. And Jack and his brother Peter moved from Austria to Germany to live with their Jewish grandparents in Berlin. And then the grandparents sent them to a summer camp to get away. The mother went into exile. She ended up going to a concentration camp where she was executed. And over a series of events, and it's a powerful story, and I want you to hear the long form of it, Jack was eventually able to come to America. This became his adopted country. And Jack, I am just so grateful to have you here with us today. Welcome back. It's good to talk to you again. And thank you for being here. We were talking about in the first half of this program, I was talking about the importance of voting and our civic responsibility. And I just want, how are you feeling today, Jack?
I can try it again.
Yeah, wait a minute. Just give me a minute.
Well, I hear you.
Hello?
I hear you, Jack. Jack, I hear you. Well, we're having some connectivity problems. He'll be with us in just a moment. Jack is 92. And when he came to America, it was he ended up getting drafted into the military here in the United States. He had to endure some terrific, horrific things in Germany, and they put him in he had to join the Hitler Youth. He couldn't tell anybody he was Jewish. His father had baptized him as Catholic, and because of that, he was able to participate in school and not be sent to a concentration camp had anybody known, because his mother was Jewish. So, Jack, are you with me right now?
Peter, we cannot hear you.
I can hear you. Such is the miracle.
Totally quiet.
It's totally quiet. well, I can hear you. You
Hello,
might want to
Peter?
help with. I tell you what, I'm gonna put it on hold and let Nick work with. See if we can get you the. Can you help with that, Nick? And Nick's going to try to work with him, see if he can get that patched through, because I wanted you to hear his story. He had to join the Hitler Youth because people were saying, what are we going to do with these kids? Who are these kids? Why aren't they in the Hitler Youth? And so they had to join it, and they had to sing songs about how evil the Jews were and Hitler and, how much they loved Germany and all that kind of stuff. And it was a horrific event for he and his brother. And they were forced into this world where family members kept disappearing. They go to concentration camps. They were being killed, and he and his brother were the only ones that survived. And he came to this country, and and learned how to speak English and so forth. And the United States military ended up drafting him and sent him to Germany.
Same thing.
Are you there with me now, Jack? Jack, can you hear me now? I hear you, Jack. I can hear Dana. Well, I don't know that we're going to be able to pull this off.
The red is gone too.
Jack?
I don't know. It just went a little dark. That's all. You're still in there. Don't hang up. And
Jack, are you with me?
Well, they're not coming.
Well,
I have to.
Nick, if you'll work on that a little bit more. We're trying to. His daughter's name is Dana, and she can help with that. If you can do that, Nick, that would be great to make sure they can hear, because I can hear them. And anyway, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I wanted to give you as much of his story because he has some strong thoughts, as you can imagine, about patriotism and about this country and the freedoms. And as you're watching what's going on in the world today and on our college campuses and everything else, it's not going to get any better unless we stand up and say something. It's not going to get any better unless we're willing to make some bold changes. They're going to get worse. And Jack understands that. He's been there. And, he told the story of having to listen in secret to the BBC of the invasion of Normandy. And they were just praying and hoping for the Allies to make it so that they could be free of this thing. I mean, it was, they were forced to work in the Hitler Youth, and for no money, just for the good of the war, quote unquote. And so these are the kind of things that we need to remember, and understand that, if we don't do anything, how long before people who really love to get in there and tell people how to live their lives start doing it? How long before we escape that? And Nick is going to work with them, and hopefully we'll be able to get him in pretty soon, because I want you to hear it in his own words. It's not every day you hear somebody who has survived this. There was another Holocaust survivor who was very important to my family, and intersected both Gracie and I the same summer. We both met her, and that was Corrie ten Boom. I didn't know Gracie at the time. We were a couple of years apart, but I met Corrie in Georgia, and Gracie met her in Florida. And it was Corrie ten Boom who pointed Gracie to Jesus and told her about Jesus, and who had survived the Holocaust herself, had lost her sister, her father, and as they were standing up to hide Jews away from the Nazis, and they paid dearly for it. What about us? Are we willing to do such a bold thing? Are we willing to stand up for the people who are being maligned right now in our college campuses? You know, I was watching these things with just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this was happening in America. And yet it's here. Are we willing to say something? Are you willing to even vote? Are we willing to say, no, we're not going to allow this anymore? And we are going to protect our elections and make sure that they're free and fair. And that we're not going to teach this woke, parasitic mind virus that is infecting this country with all these things. So, Nick, do we have everybody here? Well, I apologize again for the delay, but it'll be worth it just to hear his voice. Not every day you get to talk to somebody who had that kind of life. And the book is called, by the way, My Two Lives. I told Jack the other day that he ought to make his third act of My Three Lives, because now he didn't write the book until he's 90. And to tell this amazing journey that he's had and the life he's had here in America. So are we willing to do this ourselves? And that's what the point of this program is, this broadcast is Truth Talk Live. The truth is we are in a very dangerous place in this country, where we have the risk of having things corrupting us as a nation irreversibly if we don't stand up. That's not just me saying it. There was Elon Musk. Say what you will, but that's an extraordinary voice to be saying that. The richest man in the world is saying we're in danger. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Truth Talk Live. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. This is Peter Rosenberger. Glad to have you with us. 866-348-7884. I think we got everybody. And Nick has been working tirelessly on this. Jack, are you with me?
Yes, I am.
Oh, look at that. Well, Jack, how are you feeling?
I feel fine, thank you.
I've been sharing a little bit of your story to set this up, and of course I want folks to go out to my podcast at peterrosenberger.com. They can hear the whole story that we did, you and I, the conversation we had the other day. We talked for about an hour.
Yes.
And
Yes.
But I just want on this show today, I've been talking about the importance of us standing up. I saw a report the other day that said 104 million people who of faith, all different kinds of faith, and particularly 41 million who identify as Christians, are not voting. And as somebody who came from who escaped barely from a totalitarian regime like you did, you and your brother did, what are your thoughts on the civic responsibilities we have as voters of this country and how much you love this country? Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, Peter, absolutely. You know, I think it's our duty as citizens of this wonderful country to vote and to be familiar with what's going on politically, at least to some extent, and we definitely have to vote. And I always knew that in this country people vote, which is wonderful. It's a free country, and that's the way it should be. And I'm just, disappointed if there are that many people that don't vote. It's absolutely your duty as a citizen of the United States to vote during election time.
What was the first election that you voted in when you became an American citizen?
Oh, that was, I believe it was Eisenhower, I think. Gosh, that's a long time ago, It wasn't, I came to this country in 1950. I was a citizen and came to this country in 1954 as a citizen coming out of the Army.
That would have been Eisenhower's second election.
Okay, then I was right. That's what it was. Yeah.
How did you feel the first time you voted as an American citizen?
Oh, I was so proud, that I had the right to do that I had the right to vote as to who is going to be the leader of this wonderful country. I was so proud, And
did you feel like
I liked Eisenhower very much,
Did you feel that your vote mattered?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Every vote matters.
I love your story, Jack, and I love the conversation we had. And as we celebrated, I keep saying celebrated, I'm sorry for that. As we commemorated this 1-year anniversary, this very sad anniversary of what happened on October 7th. You and I talked last week. What were your thoughts this week on October 7th?
Well, I certainly remembered what happened 1 year ago, which was one of the most terrible things I've ever seen. It was the worst kind of thing that happened to the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And what Hamas did, I think, was just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. It's just unfortunate what happened since then, that we have a major war here right now in the Middle East. This is all as a result of that. Hamas started the war, and whatever Israel did since then is just to defend themselves. And Israel has got to defend itself, It's the first time that we as Jewish people have our own country. And that all happened after the Holocaust. I believe it was in 1948, I believe, that the United Nations voted to have Israel a country and of the Jewish people at that time. And it's the first time we ever had our own country, and we're not going to give it up. And I believe that our people will fight to the very last. And even though the Arab countries keep saying that they're going to destroy us and send us all into the Mediterranean Sea and drown us, I think that we will continue to fight, and I believe that Israel is going to win their freedom to continue for us to have our own country.
I believe so too, Jack, and I look back at the steps that got us here And, when the United Nations set this forth, but I don't know that Israel has a lot of friends in the United Nations right now.
No,
And-
we don't.
And
That's
yet,
so unfortunate.
I think it was, who was it, Bibi Netanyahu or Golda Meir? I cannot remember, but it was said that if the terrorists lay down their arms, there'd be no more war. If Israel laid down its arms, there'd be no more Israel.
Yes.
And pivoting to this, and you see what's happening in our country. Now, you've lived through this. I mean, you watched what happens when people with unfettered power, with evil agendas, what they would do. They killed your mother. They killed your grandparents. They killed your cousins and your family. And
Yes.
the life that you've built here in this country because of the freedoms that we have, and you, I would really encourage you to listen to the entire interview. I mean, Jack was conscripted by his commanding officer to be the color guard, and he was able to march with the colors, carrying the United States flag at Normandy, at the 10-year anniversary of Normandy. And he was listening on the BBC 10 years earlier in secret because they couldn't rejoice that the Allies were coming. They heard about Normandy. They heard what was going on, and they couldn't rejoice. They couldn't tell anybody they were excited because they knew that freedom was on its way. When you see the flag now, Jack, and I know it gave you tremendous pride and deep feelings when you carried the flag there at Normandy in front of thousands and thousands of people. When you see our flag now, it's a bit tattered, but what are your thoughts when you see the American flag now?
I still love it. I love our flag. And I think our flag will continue to be our flag. I am just very, very sure that somehow this is going to continue. Although, it's a very dangerous situation, what's going on in this country right now. In a way, it's somewhat like what happened during the Holocaust in Germany, where it all started. And it was a wonderful country to live in for the Jewish people, and the Jewish people did very well, and they were very, very German. My grandfather, he fought in the First World War for Germany and was awarded the Cross for Bravery. And it was a terrible thing. And I just hope that nothing like this is going to happen in this country. And this anti-Semitism, it's really difficult to understand. And it's been going on for so many, many, many years. And why? I think the Jewish people, wherever they lived, they worked very hard. I think they did well. They supported the country they lived in and the governments they lived in. And I think the same is going on in this country. And for any of our people here in this country to be against Israel now, I think it's almost unbelievable,
It's unconscionable, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And and I want to go back to what you said about your grandfather. We're the last 30 seconds here, but your grandfather was Jewish, and he served in the Great War in World War I, and he was awarded medals for bravery and all these things. He was a decorated vet, and then within a very short amount of time, within just a few decades, he was persecuted as a Jew, and then your family was killed. I mean, that's how fast it turned. That's how fast it turned. You said something on a podcast, and it's at peterrosenberger.com. Please go take a listen to it at the podcast. But you said something at the end, Jack, and I'll leave it with this. You said, pray for peace and do something. Those are great words, Jack. Great words.
Yes. That's
Thank
the
you.
way I truly feel.
Thank you for being with us, Jack Werfel. The book is called My Two Lives, and I am honored to be able to talk with you, sir. It is just such a treat. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Truth Talk Live. Pray for peace and do something.
Truth Talk Live.
Another program powered by the Truth Network.